Now we'll talk about sessions. If you have session entries, this is off by default, but if you need to know your punch in and punch out times, you can go about this by one of two ways. You can have it off by default for a time entry or on by default. So we'll set it on for default. Now if we go into time entries and we go add a new entry here, we'll pick a client and we'll just say it's Acme. And as you can see now, in the date and time we have used sessions. It has the switch for on, and it just has the start date and start time. Now this won't actually create the session record until after you hit save, so you'll have to hit save. Once you go into save, then you'll have your sessions and you can see the switch disappears. So in the sessions we could add a couple manually if we wanted to. Let's say this was an hour. And you can see now we have our one session there. And make sure you tap on save. So there's our new session entry. Okay, when you are running timer in sessions, there's two ways that you can display the timer. If we go into back to this time entry and we tap on this, you can see that we have an hour. Now it's adding a couple seconds to the entry, so in the display here. Also, if we go in and we can change this to session time, instead this will give us the elapsed session time. So now if we go back into this and see it's an hour 1 minute, instead of saying an hour plus time, now it's just showing us the time for this particular session. Okay, I'm not going to annotate this yet. That's the next thing. This is the last thing, is the session note here. And you can have it ask you what you want to do. You can always have it bring you right into the annotate section, or never ask you to annotate. So we're going to leave this on ask. And when we go into a session, and whenever we're finished with a session, if we stop it, if it asks, it's going to pop up this and ask us if we want to note the session. And we could say this is test, and that's our session note for that. It brings us back to the main time entry screen. Okay, the last thing is reports here. When you email a report to yourself, it's good to have the default in here. So set your email where you want the reports to go to, so you don't have to retype it every time. The export fields are all the report fields that you can export in the report. All the fields from the time entries and sessions and expenses are all in here. You can turn them on or off. If you want to change the order of things, you just tap on the three lines and drag it to where you want it to be, and then save it when you're done. Okay, there's a couple different formats we have for exporting now. The first one is HTML, which we've always done, and we'll leave that there for a second. I'll come back and explain some more. Okay, we have order by, which our standard has always been by client by date, and if you're a timesheet worker, what you'll want instead is to switch this to date by client, and what that will do is it will sort all the days together and then subsort by client, whereas the client will always group all the clients is to each client and then sort it by date order in there. Okay, and if you have if you're exporting to like Excel, you'll want to check the strip carriage return line feed. So if you were in a session or in a reference comment here, and you hit the return button down here a couple times, that's a carriage return line feed, and this would be the line down there. And what would happen is on Excel, it would get up to this line and it will wrap the whole next line, including all the data after it, on the next line. So that's why you want to have strip carriage return line feed in this setup, to make sure that it doesn't put that in there. It will actually just strip it out and make it one big paragraph. And grand totals works only if you're in the order by client date, and the grand total will give you grand total of the duration and the total amount by each client. Okay, now our other new option is we now have CSV exports, and you can either email yourself the HTML, the CSV, or you can do both. So I'm going to turn these both on. Okay, you can see that once we do that, we now have a lot more options down here. And these are the options for the CSV. We have the delimiter, which we can select our normal delimiters, and tab is usually the best one to use. File format, if your destination machine is Mac or if it's Windows, select that here. If you're adding things that have quotes in it or stuff, generally it's good to have quotes around the text fields, so we'll check that. If you want to zip your archive, the CSV archive that's attached in the email, you check that here. And one note, if you're on a Macintosh and you try to uncompress a archive that has a password on it, it's the built-in Mac archiver program is going to give you an error saying that it's invalid. So if you want to unarchive password protected things on the Mac, make sure you go to Version Tracker and download Unarchiver, which is a freeware program for that. So you can set a password for your zip file if you want your zipped attachments to be password protected so nobody can see what's inside of them. Okay, and that pretty much wraps up the setup screen. Thanks for watching.